Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and while I often portray myself as an expert in hydroponics, one area I don't claim to be an expert in is microgreens. And I've been playing around with microgreens this year and learning a lot of interesting things. And so today's episode is about one of the key things I've learned about growing microgreens. I said yesterday the title of this episode could be "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend," as Simon and Garfunkel sang. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. Or an even better summary would be Bane from the Batman movies. You think darkness is your ally. You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding. And that's because I've learnt, as the quotes say there, I've learnt to love the darkness when it comes to... Don't worry, I'm not going to do a darkness quote there from the band The Darkness. I've learnt to love the darkness when it grows microgreens. As a plant physiologist, I'm often scared of putting plants in the dark because I think they're going to die or get pests and disease. Often plants get aphids and things like this, fungal diseases when you keep them in the dark or too dark. Even etiolated crops like rhubarb and asparagus I've struggled with. But with microgreens, you not only have to love the darkness, you really have to embrace it and use it and not be scared of it. And that's because you just don't get any crop unless, for the vast, vast majority of microgreens. And also the crop's rubbish if you don't use darkness. So you put your seeds on your microgreen trays, and then you put them in the dark for what seems like a stupidly long time, like up to a week or 10 days or even longer. And this allows them to go really long and leggy, the sort of thing you would never want your seedlings to do normally. And that's because if you didn't do that and you just put your microgreens into the light, they would be really, really short and you'd struggle to harvest them. And then when you tried to sell them or use them, people would look at them and go, what are they? And especially for things like basil, it's almost impossible to harvest it, even when you're just growing on a piece of paper. And if you're growing on cocoa or compost, you're just going to get loads of cocoa and compost in your harvest. And that's bad from it. Looks bad. And also there's a contamination issue there. So it actually makes it look like you've got more biomass. Even if you haven't, if you keep them in the dark, they go really long and then you can harvest them easier. And also, the key thing here is they're sweeter as well. So if you think about like golden popcorn, that doesn't even have any light when you're growing it as microgreens. You sow it in the dark, you grow it in the dark, it doesn't go anywhere near the light. If it goes to the light, it becomes green and the chlorophyll makes it taste disgusting. And that's because all that starch and the oils in the seeds are converted to lovely sugars in the etiolated seedlings, the long, leggy seedlings. And so the taste is really improved by growing it in the dark. Even things like wheatgrass, onions, things like this, mustard, a whole host of different crops. Even pea shoots should be grown in the dark. And I've always struggled. I put them in the dark for maybe 1 or 2 days, and then my crop hasn't been very good. So now, but then I've noticed something as well. I noticed that when I throw seedlings into a compost bin, or into my wormery, they survive for weeks and weeks and weeks once they've germinated in there, without me lifting the lid on the wormery or the compost bin. And they can just sit there in stasis. And so I was always worried that they're just going to use up all their energy and then just keel over and die. But that doesn't happen. They just get to the tallest they can be. And as long as they've got a bit of moisture and they're not going to get grey mold or anything like that, they'll just stay there. And so you don't need to worry about them dying. Or I know you might lose a day or two of production, but you'll soon come to realize what's the maximum number of days that gets you the most amount of growth. And so I started to try and embrace this and see how far I can push it, see how tall I can get my microgreens. And so I'm doing experiments, so as I said, basil, mustard, watercress, pea shoots, and spring onions, because obviously we're doing a load of spring onion trials. And I think this technique, as well as being really good for microgreens, could also help me produce really long spring onions that have got a really long white, what's the word for it? Neck, shoulder? Basically, the white bit, which is really good. You'll notice when you've gone to, you buy nice food, because the spring onions, you get the white bits of the spring onions, whereas if you get like a pot noodle, like a pot noodle or an itsu noodle or something like that, often you get all the green bits of the spring onions, and they don't taste as good. They don't taste as sweet, do they? If you're going to eat a spring onion, you're not going to eat the green bit on the end. You're going to eat the white bits at the bottom. So I'm going to hopefully the darkness will help me produce that. So I'm embracing my inner Bane. Obviously, if you've met me, you know I'm a muscly hunk that looks just like Bane. I mean, I'm often described as being a spitting image of, or Tom Hardy's lost cousin, lost brother, lost twin. Me and Tom Hardy basically look exactly the same. I've got a bit more muscles. So why not embrace my inner Bane? If you've actually met me, you'll know I'm probably more like Garfunkel out of Simon Garfunkel with a massive six head. So maybe it is right. Hello, darkness, my old friend is more appropriate for me than a Bane quote. But yes, I will be embracing the darkness. I'll let you know how I get on. But yeah, I really enjoy growing microgreens, and as we go into winter, I think they'll help me and my family and my colleagues stay healthy. If you meet me in the next 6 months, I'll probably be giving you a free sample of microgreens that I've been growing in the lab, in the grow room. I used to do this with wasabi. Anyone who met me for, I think, what year was that? I think 2019. If you went for a meeting and we sat down, I would have brought a wasabi plant with me. And it's a good way of advertising. I had these little stickers that said grown with liquid gold or grown with gold leaf in the US. And so a good way of advertising what the product can do, the fact that it can grow really high value products like wasabi and microgreens. If you've got any suggestions on microgreens I should be growing, let me know. I've got lots and lots of room for growing microgreens because they don't need lights. So that's the beauty of it. You only need lights for a couple of days. So that's the beauty of microgreens. The disadvantage of microgreens is that if you start up a business growing microgreens, it becomes a bit of a chore. Lots of man hours, lots of processes and things like this, and planning and spreadsheets, which I don't like. So I'm not going to put it into a business anytime soon. As I said yesterday, running a giveaway. If you review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and then send me a screenshot of the Apple Podcasts, has to be Apple Podcasts, not any other podcast provider, I'll send you a free gift in the post. Where if you're in the UK, I'll send it immediately. And if you're abroad, I'll send it you next time I'm in your country. Nobody's done this yet. So maybe nobody can be bothered. Maybe nobody's listening and I'm talking into the void. Or maybe you're all just too rich and you're all happy to just buy product or don't care about the products and you hate all my products. Either way, that's cool. But yeah, if you do want free products, dechlorinator, sticky fingers, what else did I say? Humic and fulvic acid, all sorts of products. Let me know what you'd like and I'll try and sort that for you. But yeah, all you have to do is screenshot an Apple Podcast review. You don't have to enter a competition. There's no limits at the moment. Might be if it's really popular, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's going to get really popular. So yeah, if you want, happy to give away free samples to all my lovely listeners. And that way, the aim of that is to get up the Apple Podcast charts, to get hydroponics noticed by more people by being at the top of the charts and beating these boring gardeners driveling on, providing no value, or even people doing DIY and stuff like that. So, and celebrity podcasts. If we can beat the celebrity podcasts that are only at the top of the charts because they've got a famous name behind them, that would be fan-dabby-dozy. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. How I'm learning to not avoid the dark and push my microgreens as far as I can in the dark before I introduce them to the light. Thank you very much for listening. Until tomorrow, goodbye.